Welcome back to Mr. Sheplak's class. Today we'll be covering Chapter 3, Lesson 2 on adding integers. So if you have not seen Chapter 3, Lesson 1 on integers and absolute value, please take this time to exit out of this video and watch the video on absolute value and integers. So getting started, we don't really have any vocab for this lesson, but we do have rules for adding integers, and the first one is as follows. This rule is adding integers with the same sign. So as our rule states, to add integers with the same sign, you're going to add their absolute values. The sum, or the answer, will be positive if both integers are positive. The sum or answer will be negative if both integers are negative. So if we take a look at our first examples, a positive 7 plus a positive 4 equals a positive 11. We have two positive integers, and we added their absolute values, and the absolute values of 7 and 4 are both 7 and 4. If you look at our other example, our absolute value of negative 7, is 7. Our absolute value of negative 4 is 4. So you're still adding them. 7 plus 4 would equal 11. And since both integers are negative, your answer is negative. So now we'll move on to adding integers with different signs. This is our next rule. So this rule states that in order to add integers with different signs, you subtract their absolute values. Your answer, or the sum, will be positive if the positive integer's absolute value is greater. Your answer or sum will be negative if the negative integer's absolute value is greater. So we'll take a couple looks at these examples. So we have a 9 plus negative 4 equals 5. If you notice, we have two different signs. We have a positive 9 and a negative 4. So going by our rule, we're going to subtract their absolute values. So the absolute value of 9 is 9. We're subtracting. Absolute value of negative 4 is 4. So 9 minus 4, of course, equals 5. Now, since our positive integer was a greater value than our negative integer as absolute values, our answer is going to be positive. If we look at our other example, we have negative 9 plus 4 equals negative 5. So how do we get to negative 5? Again, we're going to subtract their absolute values. So again, you're going to get 9 minus 4, but this time, since our negative integer had a higher absolute value than our positive integer, your answer is negative. I'm going to show you a couple examples. So for number 1 here, we're going to do negative 6 plus a negative 8. Now, just looking at the problem, I know my answer is going to be negative because I'm adding two integers with two negative signs. So both integers are negative, they have the same sign, you know my answer will be negative. So we're going to add their absolute values. So 6 is the absolute value of negative 6. 8 is the absolute value of negative 8. Again, we're adding them. So 6 plus 8 equals 14. And I already have my negative sign, so my answer is then negative 14. Our next example, we have a negative 3 plus a positive 10. Now there's two ways that you could look at this problem and solve it. One by a number line. So I'm starting at -3. We'll put that over here. And we're adding 10 places to the right because 10 is a positive number and positive is to the right on a number line. So if I'm going over 10 spots, so if that's 10 markers, I would be going up to a +7. So my answer there would be +7. Another way we could solve this is by using the associative property of addition. And that means that I can take this problem and move it around. So I can, instead of having -3 plus 10, I can do 10 plus a -3. And they will get the same exact answer. And this is easy when we're using our rule for adding integers with different signs, because our larger number will be in front, and when you're subtracting, it's easier to subtract with your larger number first. So now we'll use our rule. The absolute value of 10 is 10. You subtract. The absolute value of -3 is 3. 10 minus 3 is 7. So again, we have the same answer, two different ways to solve that problem. Now our last one, we have -8 plus a -4, and we'll add another 12 to it. We've got three numbers here. So what I like to do is break this into parts. I'm going to do this part first. So I've got a -8 plus a -4. So I've got two of the same signs. I'm going to use my adding integers rule with the same signs. That means I'm adding their absolute values. 8 plus 4. That equals 12, and since they were both negative, my answer is negative, so I'm left with a -12 plus 12. So now I'm left with -12 plus 12. They're two different signs. So I'm going to use my rule of adding integers with opposite signs, and there you have to subtract the absolute values. So -12's absolute value is 12. 12's absolute value is also 12. Your answer should be 0. 12 minus 12 is 0. That will cover Chapter 3, Lesson 2 on adding integers. Thank you very much for watching.